Hey guys, it's Casey, and today we're going to talk about books I want to read in genres that I don't read. So don't read might be a little bit of a dramatic way to put it, but I want to go over this list of books in a couple of different genres that I don't tend to reach for. If you've been on my channel for very long, you'll know that I primarily read fantasy and then a little bit of sci-fi thrown in there, and that's kind of the bulk of my reading life essentially. But I don't want to get entirely too penned into that, so I do try to keep my eyes open for books in other genres that I might really enjoy. So today I thought it might be fun to go through 5 genres that I don't read very much of at all and talk about a book for each of those genres that I'm actually very intrigued by and why. So the very first genre that I don't read is horror. So horror is a genre that I tend to avoid, not because I don't think I'll like it, just simply because I'm weak. I get scared pretty easily, and so I feel like the experience of reading a horror book wouldn't be something I would enjoy. I don't watch horror movies or anything like that either, but sometimes when people talk about horror books, I just find myself wanting to read them, even though I've essentially never really read a horror book in my life. But the specific book in this genre that I really want to try is Bunny by Mona Awad. So I have heard people say this is some of the weirdest shit they've ever read. When people talk about this book, their reaction is usually just, what the hell did I just read? And that intrigues me a lot. Something about really weird books really draws me in. I don't know a huge amount about the plot of this one because of the fact that it's so weird. This one follows our main character who is trying to fit in at college, and she meets this group of girls who all go around and call each other Bunny and starts getting involved in these ritualistic, like, conjuring rituals that they're doing. And I think this just slowly gets creepy and disturbing and super weird, and I have no idea what to expect out of this, but the way everyone talks about it after they review it just intrigues me so much. And even though I don't like horror, I don't even know actually that I don't like horror, I just haven't really tried it. It's a genre that I don't read, hey. And I definitely don't know if this is a good starter book for someone who's never read horror before, but it is one that is on my radar and that I very much want to read. So the next genre I don't read very much of is literary fiction. So literary fiction is a genre that I don't intentionally avoid, I just don't pick it up all that often. I've read a few literary fiction books, some of which I've really liked, like Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. That's a really good one, but I honestly just am not very familiar with a lot of literary fiction works. Often I find them a little bit intimidating. I feel like I'm going to be bored or that they're going to go kind of over my head, which I know is probably not the case, but I am just a little bit intimidated by them. So that's kind of why I tend to steer clear of this genre. I'm also just on a huge fantasy kick because existing outside of the real world has been pretty great. But the literary fiction book that I do want to read is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. And I hesitate to say want to read as much as think I'm inevitably going to, and I'm interested to see how it goes. Because this is a book that destroys people. It is so horribly sad that people are reduced to sobbing, crying messes, and it impacts their mental health. Like, it's like one of the saddest books ever written, apparently. I've never read it, but it really seems like it strongly affects people. And I'm not gonna lie, I do want to read it because of that, which I know there's some discussion on whether or not this like FOMO around this book is healthy, and I'm not going to get into that having not read it before, but I do feel it, and I am very interested to see what this book is actually, what it contains. So this book is about, I think, a man named Jude, and it follows him and his group of friends throughout most of his entire life, basically through when they meet at college all the way up through kind of the rest of their life, I think. And that's really all I know about it. I know that there is a lot of discussion of trauma and just really horrible things happening repeatedly, I think to Jude specifically, and that this book reduces people to puddles of tears. And I just want to read it. Hello? Why is it that every time the maintenance for my apartment shows up, it is while I am filming? I don't know what else I had to say about that. But yes, so overall it's a book that I'm really intrigued by and I really want to read and see my reaction to, but I also know that I cry very easily at books and I get very emotional very easily, so it might not actually be something that's a good idea for me to read. Nevertheless, I do think I am going to end up reading it at some point, and it is kind of at the top of my list as far as literary fiction that I'm interested in. The next genre that I do not read is historical fiction, and historical fiction is one that I have probably the most negative feelings towards out of any of them on this list. Probably incorrectly think historical fiction is boring. I am not interested in it, generally speaking. It just doesn't do it for me. But that being said, one book that I am very interested in reading and is extremely popular is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And I'm not gonna lie, I am interested in this book mainly because I've heard there's bisexual representation and I am here for that. But, so in this book there is a old Hollywood starlet named Evelyn Hugo who has had a string of husbands and hasn't really talked to anyone in the media about her life story or kind of the story of her relationships. And one day she agrees to do an exclusive tell-all interview with our main character. And so this book, I believe, is mostly just that interview, so it's her talking a lot about it and taking us back into stories of her life as she grows older in kind of this old Hollywood setting. So I guess it's almost a little bit of a stretch to say it's historical fiction because I guess the interview is taking place in modern day, but it's talking about her life. But it's flagged as historical fiction on Goodreads, which is how I decided what to do with this video. So this is one that is extraordinarily popular on BookTube. Basically everyone has read it, and most people tend to really like it. There are some people who aren't as into it, and those people tend to be ones who aren't as into historical fiction or stories about celebrities, which might be me. So we'll see if I am as into this as I want to be. I've had the audiobook on hold at my library for a long time, and multiple times now it has come up and been available for me to check out, and I've just kind of kicked that can down the road a little bit because I never feel like I'm in the mood to read it. Like, I don't want to pick it up. Abstractly, it's a book I want to read. I want to have read it, but I'm never in the mood to actually read it. So we'll see if that one ever ends up actually happening. Another genre that I tend not to read is mystery or mystery thriller. This one is like kind of the halfway point between horror and like historical fiction and just contemporary fiction for me. I'm always concerned that I'm like too easily scared to actually enjoy the thriller aspects of a book, and then mystery typically doesn't intrigue me all that much. I feel like they might be a little bit boring. Like, I just never get the drive to read them. Like, unless there is magic involved, I'm just like, I check out. Like, I'm not here for it as much. I don't know what it is. And there is at least one mystery book that I am very intrigued by, and that is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. So this is a book that does have kind of a not magical element, but like a fabulous twist to it. So I guess this is like kind of puts it adjacent to my area. What am I saying? But I know this is kind of a classic like Agatha Christie style whodunit mystery with, I think, a bunch of people at a dinner party or in a mansion or something, one of those setups, and one of them dies. And our main character is trying to figure out who done it. It's a mystery. But the twist of this one is that our main character is basically reliving the night through all of the different guests' perspectives, and through each time he learns more information about who might have committed the crime. So it's kind of piecing these information together, and it's got this like weird Groundhog Day element to it that I find so interesting, and I really want to read this book. I've heard a lot of people say great things about it. This is one where I feel like the only negative things I've heard people say about it are that it can be a little bit hard to get into, but a lot of that has to do with like that Groundhog Day element. So knowing that that's what's going on going in, and knowing and accepting that you're just going to be confused for the first part of it, it makes it a little bit easier to get through and a very enjoyable read. And yeah, I think this is a mystery that I am actually like actively interested in. And the last genre on this list is romance. So I don't really read romance all that often. I'm in the middle of A Court of Silver Flames right now, and that is probably the most romance heavy thing I have like maybe ever read. Like, I just don't really read romance. But I know so many people love the romance genre. I don't typically reach for romances, again, because I am not a person who reads a lot of contemporary. But I also haven't reached for fantasy romance, so I don't really know what to say about that. Romance is not something I'm opposed to. I do enjoy romance plots in my books. I just don't tend to reach for dedicated romance books basically ever. But the one I really want to read and is getting so much buzz is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This book is blowing up. Everyone absolutely adores this book. I don't think there is a single person that I know who has read this book that hasn't given it a 4 or 5 stars, and most of them have given it 5 stars. Like, everyone loves this book, and I want to know why. I want to love this book too. I believe this is about our main character, Chloe Brown, who has been kind of living a very sheltered life and makes a list of things that she wants to do, and on that list is have casual sex with a stranger, and she meets up with this guy and romance ensues from there. I'm pretty sure that's the setup, but that's basically all I know. I know that this book is extremely well loved and that it actually gets pretty steamy, which again is not something I'm opposed to, and I just want to read this book. Like, I just want to know why everyone loves it so much. I feel like normally there's like some dissenting opinions on books, but this one is just like adored. And there's multiple books in this series that follow, I think, some of Chloe Brown's sisters, and those are also adored. And I'm just like, what is so good? I have to know. Like a lot of the books on this list, they've been on my radar for a while and I just don't pick them up. Because when I'm thinking about books I want to read, I typically gravitate towards fantasy. So I wanted to make a dedicated list where I could throw some of these books that I'm very interested in and maybe get some of you guys to tell me which ones I should read next, or if you think based on what I've said I don't like about some of these genres, if they are good ones for me to read. Or if you guys can recommend me books in these genres that you really like or think I might like more than them based on my reading tastes. But I think that's all I've got for you guys today. If you want to keep up with what I'm reading, I have a link to my Goodreads down in the description below, but other than that, I'll see you guys next time.